Hey, what's going on, everyone? I haven't done a live on Instagram in quite a while, but I wanted to give it a try again, um, just for the heck of it. So I have a guest today. I'll actually be talking to a friend I've met maybe, I don't know, it must be like 2 months ago at this point in Arizona. And we'll be talking about, um, when a job, Igor, what is up? I see like some people jumped in. The screen is a little small. It's tough to see you guys. But good to see everyone. I'll be interviewing a friend of mine today about, when it's a good time to leave a work environment or a specific field or job when you don't find it fulfilling anymore, and how hard it is to do that at times. So let me see here. Um, what's up, Justin? Justin joined. Let me add as moderator. Give me one sec, Justin. It's been a long time since I've been on. Oh, here it is. Okay, cool. Igor, good to see you, man. Igor was actually one of my guests on a podcast a little while back. Justin, what is up?
What's going on, Eugene? Good to see you.
Okay, I'm glad I was able to figure out how to add people on Instagram. I haven't done a Instagram live in like forever. And I'm like, you know what? If I don't know how to do it, I'll just figure it out on the spot. But luckily they have like an in and out menu here with the options. So it's um, quite easy to
Yeah, it's been
navigate.
probably years for me too. So yeah,
Yeah. And I wanted to, it's good to see you again. I know it's probably been like 2 months at this point since we met in Arizona on Delo's book
yeah.
signing. But I wanted to get you on the podcast just to talk about an interesting topic. Like I feel a lot of people are like, yeah, you got to change your diet. You got to work out more when you're trying to optimize your health. You got to take cold plunges, saunas, biohack this, biohack that, whatever, whatever. But there are a lot of topics that aren't covered that are probably massively even way more important. And that's kind of like the topic I wanted to start with today, and will I'm sure go on various different directions. But the importance of um, finding the right work environment for yourself, not only your passion, but the right vehicle and work environment to be able to facilitate that passion or whatever you want to do for a living. And at times, the unfortunately truth is a lot of times you may get into an occupation that you like initially, but then at a certain point, maybe the fire burns out or you kind of, change as a person as you age and the passion isn't there. But a lot of times the security is there, but it's not fulfilling anymore. And it could be very hard on a person's like mental health and also kind of just over time erode their drive to be successful or take care of themselves and be a huge detriment to their physical health eventually. And I know you had a similar story of having like a very good dream job and stuff of that sort, and that at one point probably became like very unfulfilling. And the steps and sequences you took to kind of decide like, hey, this path isn't the right path for me anymore, and how to transition out of that. Because I like to invite people on this podcast that are actually healthy health professionals have actually done the work themselves and to discuss like what actually worked for them. So you're welcome to kind of start in the journey wherever you like, and we'll go from there.
Well, thanks for having me on, brother. I've been following you for a while, been a fan of what you do, and I'm happy to chat about anything you want to talk about. And I particularly love this topic because you're exactly right. A lot of people will get into a career for whatever reason, and they find themselves, like you said, usually unfulfilled at some point. um, but it doesn't come from them like not necessarily putting in the work. I feel like a lot of people do quote what they're supposed to do. They get out of high school, maybe they go to college, they get a job, they get married, whatever. They go along and do whatever they, have been programmed to do. But then they realize at some point, a lot of people do that shit. This actually isn't what I want to spend all my time on. Maybe it's not making enough money. Maybe it's not fulfilling something that, feels like a purpose. Or maybe they just realize, you know what, I don't even believe in this industry that I got myself into. But for one reason or another, a lot of people do, I think, especially in their 30s or 40s, realize, shit, I've put so much time so much energy, education, money, dedication, intention, like all this into whatever career I'm in. But this isn't actually what I want to do right now. This is not what I want to do with my life. But at that point, it's like, damn, you've already been in the job for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to just give up, your whole career, give up, the position you have earned, and like you said, security, because at that point you're probably making decent money for whatever industry you're in. You probably have some benefits for, insurance, medical insurance, vision, maybe life insurance. You have a lot of things that come as benefits to those jobs, but oftentimes those benefits are what keep people stuck in those jobs that they don't want to be in, because they're like, well, crap, I can't imagine leaving here because, giving up a salary and giving up all these benefits. Like, I'm sure like, dude, like the average person that has a job with benefits, let's say, it doesn't matter how much you make. Let's just say an even $100,000, and you have life insurance a little bit, and you group life insurance, and you have medical insurance and vision coverage and stuff like that. To leave that job and get those same insurance coverages or even anywhere close to it, you look at the numbers of that, people realize, crap, one, I can't leave this job and make anything less. I actually have to make maybe 10 to 15% more to just afford that, same level of coverage outside of the job. So people get stuck. And that sucks because it's like, man, that's, I think, why that's so many people, especially men in their prime, are finding themselves depressed. They're finding themselves like not fulfilled with life. Suicide rates are way too high for, especially for men in their prime age, usually between 30 and 55 or so. And I think a lot of that has to do with, we just get up and we do the thing that we're, are programmed to do. We get up, we go to work, we drink our coffee, we do the job, we get our paycheck, we come home, and after a while, it's like, man, what am I actually doing here? I'm actually not happy, and it's a tough thing to get out of. But you're exactly right. That is essentially what I did. Man, coming up on 9 or so, almost 10 years ago, I had a really cool job in aerospace that I decided to leave. So I don't know if you want to get into that yet or not, but for anyone that like watches this, and if you find yourself in that position where like, hey, I have comfort, I have security, things are okay, but I want more. I want to earn more. I want to have more in life. I want to do different things. How am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to leave? You can. There is a method to do it. I have 5 steps that we'll talk about here in a little bit that I've thought about a lot. I've analyzed a lot. I've used a lot. I've had other people use, because it's not impossible. You might feel like you're trapped and you can't give up the comfort and the security and the career and all that, but man, just look around to how many other opportunities there are in the world that are completely different from whatever you do today. There is more opportunity today than there has ever been throughout the course of human history. People making more money at home than they ever have before, or people just having the option to do all sorts of different things and make unbelievable amounts of money through ways that didn't even exist 5 years ago. So there's so many different ways to do it, but I bet on the other side, Eugene, there's so many options out there to make money, to have different careers, and to fulfill, your purpose, that can be overwhelming in itself. It's like, well, shit, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to do crypto and forex and real estate and coach and have a t-shirt and do all this and have a drop shipping company. And it's like, dude, there's so many opportunities out there to make money that sometimes too many opportunities can become overwhelming. So you got to get very clear about what it is that you want. So I think
Mhm.
that's the first question, is to just ask yourself, what do I want? Like your man Igor here is commenting a lot. What's up, brother? Like if you just ask yourself, what do I want? And remove all barriers, remove all restraints, remove what you think you're supposed to say. Get rid of that mentality of, I'm going to say what everyone else wants me to say, and just get quiet with yourself and get alone and be like, what do I, Justin, what do I, Eugene, actually want? And keep it vague at first. If you could just remove yourself from whatever you do for work, your regular day, your regular environment, forget all that stuff. Forget about the dogs and cars or whatever you have going on in your life, and just think, what do I actually want? If you can get quiet in your own head and get serious and get truthful with yourself about what it is that you want, that's step one. Because most people are doing things and going somewhere that they don't even want to go, but they don't realize they're on the wrong path. Because we get up every day, the alarm goes off. Let's just make something up. The alarm goes off, you get coffee, you make breakfast, you go to the gym, you do your job, you do the thing, whatever it is you do every day. You're going to a destination. You're going to end up somewhere. But without slowing down or stopping really and really analyzing, okay, where do I want to go? Chances are that path that you're on is not where you actually want to go. So it does require a stop and a reanalysis of like, what am I doing with my energy and with my time if you want to go to a different place? And then, there's a couple steps we'll talk about, but I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They're going somewhere, but they're kind of just driving the car blind, making left turns and right turns and slowing down, speeding up, and just driving without a map, without navigation. And they don't really know where they're going, even if they have a career. Because if you were to look down the road, you're like, okay, let's just say someone is in a career. Think about when you retire from that career, whatever that looks like. Just imagine, what is realistic? What is the top of the earning band of this industry that I'm in? What does a realistic retirement look like in this industry that I'm in? What could I expect to do when I am of retirement age in my current job? Think about that. Get realistic with it. You can Google this. You can find this answer out very easily. Um, and look at that and be like, fuck, is that what I want? Sorry, I don't know if we cuss in here or not, but like,
No,
is
it's
that what
okay.
we want?
Just
Like,
speak however you want to speak,
yeah.
man.
So,
Not
see,
a
that's what
Disney
you got to.
Channel.
Okay, good, good. Um, yeah, you like to keep it real, So I was a sailor for a while, so it just comes out sometimes. But you gotta figure out where you want to go. That's step one. And most people haven't put much time into figuring out where they want to go. They just got the degree, they got the job, they got the promotion, maybe another couple promotions, and they've just naturally gone through life without really putting a ton of intention behind the thinking of what am I doing with my time and am I actually going to where I want to go? You know?
Well, let's start with your career in aerospace, just so
Okay.
people could get some similar relation, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't like bad in the beginning, I'm pretty sure it was
Sure.
probably great in the beginning, and you spent many years. Can you walk us through like the sequences of events and then eventually how you came to the conclusion this isn't right for me, and then
Yeah.
um, how you kind of took the leap of faith, because there's a lot of things that could go through a person's mind, like, oh, maybe grass isn't greener on the other side. So I can try something new and it might be all the same or even worse, which is a possibility as well. Um,
Right.
and a lot of times I feel people get stuck in, they the problems arise when they start nesting and creating belief systems or reframes that kind of keep them there. Like, yes, I don't want to be here, but like you said, I have these benefits and, I have two kids or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. And those kind of positive psychology in that situation, I feel, is actually like a negative aspect of the journey
Yes.
and keeps you locked in even more so than usual. So can you go over the steps of how your career progressed and maybe some obstacles like personal obstacles that kept you stuck longer than necessary, or was it just one of those like aha moments, et cetera, et cetera? So,
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, anybody can reinvent themselves and what they do with their day and with their life and the trajectory of their life at any point. Like you're not stuck in this thing, no matter how far you are in your career, no matter how great the job is. Like a lot of people look around and they can't imagine living in a different home, let alone having a completely different career path and a different life or living in a different country. But you can absolutely decide to change that. So yeah, after high school, I joined the Navy because I didn't want to do any college. I just wasn't into school anymore. So, I was a junior in high school during 9/11, and so I watched that unravel in class basically as a junior in high school. And this is, of course, around the time where you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do when I graduate? Am I going to go to college? What am I going to do? And I didn't want to do anything with college. I wasn't interested in vocational schools. I was just over school. Like I just didn't really, a lot of stuff wasn't sticking for me because I didn't see a reason to memorize a lot of shit. Like I was just not into school. So one day my buddy Donnie comes we worked at Sam's Club here in Scottsdale, and he's like, "Hey, I'm joining the Navy." And a very long story short, I joined the Navy as well. Went in with him on the buddy program, and I was in the Navy for 4 years. And so during the Navy is where I started to get into the career that I stayed in for 14 years, even though I was only in for 4. I worked essentially on fighter jets.
mhm.
So I worked avionics, which is like things like radar. the weapon systems, radios, communications, different sensors, like all those different computer components of a fighter jet is what I worked on in the Navy. So I did that for 4 years and decided I didn't want to keep sailing around the world every year or so. And so I got out and started to work at Lockheed Martin, which you're probably familiar with,
Hmm.
which is the world's largest defense contractor. So my first job there was also avionics, but working in a very specific field of fighter jets called flight test. So essentially, what that is when we have a brand new fighter jet. The first one I worked on at Lockheed was the F-22 fighter jet, U.S. only, basically our Lamborghini of the sky. We get a brand new fighter jet from Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed says, "Hey, this is how fast it can go, how high it can go. This is the angle of attack that you can drop this weapon with it, hitting its target. Here's the structural stability of the airplane as far as we know." And what we do in flight test is we instrument the plane. We essentially load it up with sensors and recording devices and all this stuff. So when we send it up and go on, it's called a test mission, we are essentially pushing the jet beyond the known limits and then bringing it back and seeing what happens. Literally, it's like we're looking for problems. Like if they say, hey, we can go, we can pull 4 Gs at this altitude at this angle, with it being safe, cool, we're going to go out and pull 5 and then 6 and then 7 and then 10 and just see what happens until it breaks. And then when we realize, okay, this is the actual safety limit before it goes to the operational fighters in the Air Force. So as you may imagine, it's a pretty cool world because we are testing everything from stealth technology to the most advanced weapons. We are testing like the newest sensor fusion, um, combining radar and all these different sensors and networks in the sky, along with our weapons and all this kind of stuff. We could fuse it all together in this supercomputer, which is a flying fighter jet with 80,000 pounds of thrust, and covered in stealth technology. Dude, fighter jets, in my opinion, are the coolest machines on the planet. I mean, if people really understood what they could do, I think people would be a lot more in awe of that technology. It's pretty amazing. So I worked the F-22 for 5 years. I even got to run the engines on that thing. So anytime we would replace a component of the engine, I was one of the guys instead of a pilot that was allowed to go in the cockpit and go up there and start the jet, start the two engines, bump up the throttles a bit, do the test, do the ops checks and all that stuff, operational checks. And then I went over for 5 years on the brand new, at the time, F-35, the Marine variant specifically, but I worked all the F-35 variants. If anyone doesn't know, the F-35 fighter jet has an Air Force version, a Marine version, and a Navy version. So the fuselage, like the bulk of the plane, all look very similar. But the Air Force one is meant for basically just taking off on a regular runway. The Marine one that I really specialized in, I had my name painted on the side of BF-18 was the serial number of a brand new F-35 Marine variant. That one could also land and take off vertically like a helicopter.
Mm.
Very interesting, really, complicated as you can imagine, piece of machinery. And then the Navy one had longer wings so it could glide slower and land on the boat and take off the boat from the aircraft carrier. So essentially, when I came over there, I really started to do really well. I was getting advanced all the time. I was getting new positions, getting awards, tester of the quarter, like this of the quarter, this of the year. My jet was kicking ass. And essentially, I'll tell you what I did there. My last job was called a lead flight test control engineer. So I essentially owned that aircraft, the BF-18 serial number that we had at this classified space up in, you ever been to Edwards, California, Edwards Air Force Base?
Uh, Maybe,
It's,
or at least driven past it for
yeah,
sure.
it's about an hour north of LA, way up there in a dry lake bed. We're right next to NASA. It's a lot of like really famous things have happened out there, like Chuck Yeager, breaking the sound barrier. A lot of classified things go on up in that area. We're not too far away from the other classified range up in Nevada, if you know what I mean. So we do a lot of cool stuff, which is another reason why I'm just absolutely fascinated and all over the UAP, UFO, drone, submersible type stuff going on right now because I spent 14 years in basically cutting edge fighter jet, technology that has a lot of bleed over into other areas like drones and other things, right? So, anyways, long story short, to answer your question about what I was doing, it was going very well. I had my own jet. I had a crew that worked on it morning, day, and night at my direction around the clock. We had to maintain it, fix it, configure it, modify that plane, get it ready for these, classified flight test missions. And we even did some missions where the vice president of the United States was watching remotely to see if it was successful or not. This is some very important high level national security types testing that we did on the newest fighter jets in our arsenal. And it went really well. I think I was one of the second youngest, I believe, aircraft manager when I got an aircraft manager position. I believe at the time I was the youngest lead flight test control engineer to own my jet at the time. And like I said, just kept getting awards and doing all this stuff. And I mentioned that not to brag
Mhm.
by any means, but just to show that that career was going well. It was a lot of fun, and the more I did it, the more it just kind of went in my favor and kept working for me. And along, also that comes with it, like the way we kicked this thing off was I had a decent salary, I made good money. I had overtime, company cell phone and freaking, all the benefits you can imagine from the world's largest defense contractor with insurance and health and all this kind of stuff. But what happened, Eugene, was I kept moving. Like I'm a fast learner and I'm a fast mover. Like if things are going good, I'm gonna double down on it. If things aren't going well, I'm gonna shift direction and get into something else that is working well for me. And so what I eventually ended up doing was applying for another position above where I was at as a lead flight test control engineer, and I essentially won the position. The director calls me into his office and he goes, "Hey, I want you for this job. You've proven you can do it. Like this is, you're the guy." And then he goes, "But however," I was like, "What do you mean, however?" And he goes, "However, HR says you need another 10 to 15 years experience on top of the 14 years you already have." And I was like, "All right, well, you're the director of this classified facility we're at, like literally the director, civilian oversight of the Air Force and everyone else that we worked with. Like, just do the thing, just write something, just bless it. Tell HR that they're wrong, and I'm your guy." And he wasn't able to. So even though I had the experience, I had the degrees, I had everything on paper, and most importantly, I had shown that I could do that job in person over and over again. And he had selected me. He was not able to hire me, and it was in that moment. This was my light bulb moment where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here for 10 to 15 more years like HR has suggested just to get that job. Like to me, that was insane. Like I said, I'm a fast mover. I like to keep going and progressing and add value and just keep going and learn and learn and learn. And when they presented that option with me to basically like, hey, you got to sit here for 10 more years, that was it. I decided basically in that moment that I was going to be out of there. And I think it was about within 6 months of learning that I left. I completely ditched that career entirely. I was 3 classes shy of a master's degree in aeronautical science that I decided not to finish. I had already gotten my bachelor's degree in technical management and aircraft safety, but I ditched the master's degree with only 3 classes left. I sold our house that we had just built, customized, and moved into in California. Left the stepdaughter behind because she wanted to stay and finish school, and basically moved my family to Arizona from California. Like just completely severed what we were doing and moved on because I refused to sit there and just have this major parachute on my back and a roadblock from going any further. But it was crazy when that happened because you know even as I say it now, I'm like, wow, that's kind of nuts because I mean, I could have stayed in that career forever. You know, sure, maybe I had to wait for that position, but I would have moved and done something else. I could have gone and been, whatever position I wanted on the new bomber or a new whatever, a new drone or something like that. But to me, it was like, you know what? There's too much red tape here. There's too many restrictions, and I'm either gonna have to sit here and just let someone else decide how I progress. I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to venture out and I'm going to either succeed or fail or really figure it out. I never thought I was going to fail, but I was like, I need to go out there and just be on my own and just see what I'm made of. Because sitting here working for this major company with seemingly a lot of upside, dude, there was more red tape and more restrictions than I was willing to put up with. So I decided to just leave that entire thing behind and just move states and go figure it out.
Were there any I guess safe measures that you took to make sure the transition was like as safe as possible?
I mean, yeah, there's a couple steps that I can share with you here, but I remember what you asked me a few minutes ago. Why did I maybe stay in it? I don't think I've ever talked about this. Yeah, that's a good question. Let me answer this. So when I first got out of the Navy, or when I, yeah, first got out of the Navy, I originally wanted to come back home to Arizona and get my degree. Like then I was ready to go to college. I was going to go to ASU, lived right down the street. Well, that's when I got a job on the F-22. It was a cool job. My GI Bill would cover school, and I was like, okay, I'll just do that. But I always told myself, I'll just do it for a year or 2 years. I'll just do another year. I'll just do another year. And before you know it, 10 years went by. So what kept me in that job longer than I want, to answer your question, was essentially you just get consumed when you take with what you're doing when you take your eye off of the bigger picture. And it was very easy to just collect a paycheck, have fun, blow stuff up with these fighter jets, and make pretty decent money and buy new dirt bikes, buy new trucks, buy new guns, buy the stuff I like to do, travel to Vegas, San Diego whenever I want. Like it was just kind of just fell into a really comfortable zone. Especially at that point, I was like 23 when I started. So, my early to mid 20s, when you can kind of do whatever you want to do. I didn't have any kids. I just had a dog. I wasn't married, and I had enough money to do whatever I wanted to do. I just kind of stayed there because it was fun. I took my eye off the ball. Like growing up, my dad always had me reading, books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Og Mandino and these business and self-development books, but I kind of like forgot about that for a long time. So that's what it was. Like, I was always telling myself one more year, 2 more years. Before you know it, 10 years went by. So it's wild how fast time goes by. And now that I have a kid too, she's 6. I can't believe she's 6. Things just time goes by so quick. So we have to be careful that we don't just get stuck in the routine of doing whatever it is that we do every day, especially if we don't want to do it.
Yeah. And the weird thing about like in general, corporate environments have like a very low satisfaction rate, in
Yeah.
terms of employees. I think like I remember at one point I was getting thinking about getting a master's in industrial organizational psychology, which is basically
Hmm.
kind of HR work for the most part.
Sure.
And I remember reading that 85% of people weren't just like unhappy at work in the corporate environment, but like absolutely miserable with it.
Right.
But on the paper, it seems like it's the dream setup. You show up, you just do work, and it's like usually a nice office setup with air
Yeah.
conditioning, and you get your benefits, and it's like a consistent bi-monthly paycheck, and you get paid time off and everything, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But it seems kind of like it's soul crushing for one reason or another for many people. I have my ideas about why that is. But I know you mentioned kind of bureaucracy and maybe needing a lot more autonomy in your work. And I do hear that a lot too. And also hear often just people don't feel like very important in their job. You know what I mean? They feel kind
Right.
of like they're just a small little piece that could be replaced anytime at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Were there any of those feelings for you? Because you just mentioned, like being able to go to Vegas and on paper, everything looked like very perfect.
Hmm.
But I'm just wondering, do you know like why it's such a high dissatisfaction rate with corporate work? I mean, it's pretty much like rounded up, almost 90% of people just hate it.
Well, yeah, because if you think about the structure of that corporate world, no matter what industry you're in, it's essentially just keeping people in as cogs of a bigger machine. And you're exactly right. If somebody moves or dies or quits or whatever, there's endless people to backfill their position. And when you realize that, that's not a great thing to understand, about the work that you do. Because people do want to feel valued. Like they really do. People, what doesn't matter what business you're in or what you do for work and whether you admit it or not, but you do want to feel like you're contributing. You want to feel like what you do is valuable. You want to feel like the way you spend your time is actually contributing to something. And I think when people realize that, man, it's not really, there's really nothing special about me and what I'm doing in this corporate world because anyone else could just step in and do this. That's not fun. And I think that's where a lot of people start to struggle. And then they realize, man, I'm actually stuck here too because of the pay, because of the benefits, because of this career choice I made. And, I can't leave the career. I've been in it for 15 years. I can retire in 5 more or what, 10 more or whatever. Um, and that's where I think people really start to spiral down is when they realize that they're not treated like they're worth much. They're treated just as much as they get paid, probably feel like less, and that's not a fun place to be mentally, you know?
Yeah, I also feel like the I don't even know who the hell invented the 9 to 5, 5 days a week work schedule. You know, it seemed to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
pop out of nowhere. But it seems to be like, especially if you're driving to work, like very consuming too. If you count, you know, the time of getting ready for work, driving to work,
Oh yeah.
getting into the parking lot, having to walk into the office, then your day at work, then driving back, getting stuck in traffic, probably have like an hour or two max with your family like every night. And you're probably really tired at that point too. So you're not even
Right.
like fully present. Then you wake up and you do it again. And then if you get to a high enough ranking, like middle manager or director or above, you're definitely going to be, even if you're at home on the weekends, going to be doing something work related, if not thinking
Yeah.
about a future project, actually doing the work for a specific project to get stuff ready for Monday. And it's like, I feel like the central, not I feel like it's just fact. Like the central nervous system hasn't evolved to deal with that much
Right.
continuous work and micro and macro stressors that come with projects and deadlines and office politics and bureaucracy, et cetera, et cetera. And
Right.
of course, you're going to find minute, there are no absolutes, and you're going to find lottery winners, one out of every few thousand central nervous systems that could actually handle that, but most people can't. And that leads to a lot of burnout. So even if there's passion for the field to begin with, it kind of disappears, you know, especially when the person becomes very unhealthy and very overweight and inflamed. Then obviously
Yeah.
inflammation starts in the body, it leads to inflammation in the mind, and that distorts your conscious experience of
Hmm.
your everyday existence, et cetera, et cetera. But was there any pushback when you told like your family or friends that like, hey, I'm gonna leave this perfect dream job? And did you already have something lined up, or were you like, I'm just gonna figure it out when it happens?
So I originally left to open a brewery. So I knew I had a beer partner out here in Arizona, a finance partner. And for, I think probably about that year or so before I left, I basically immersed myself in the beer world. I learned how to make beer at home, built a badass brewery at my house, got a second job after work at a local brewery there in LA County. Listened to every single business of beer podcast. You know, just signed up for the Brewers Association newsletters, and just really immersed myself in it because that was my plan for when I left aerospace was to go do that. So I did have a plan, but to answer your question about pushback, absolutely. You know, a lot of the people that I thought were going to be like my biggest supporters, like especially my dudes, my friends, my homies that were like around, you know, similar age, a lot of them ended up being the ones that just shut up. They got quiet, you know, and actually were not supportive. Kind of thought I was being an idiot, or at least that's kind of how it came across. And that, but I don't really think it was that. I think it was them also realizing, man, I want to do that. I want to go do something else and screw this guy for actually doing it, you know? So it's crazy. Those that were closest to me, you know, not everybody, of course, but a lot of people that I thought would be supportive ended up were not very supportive at all. And then as far as the family goes, there wasn't any like negativity or anything. But my sweet mother, of course, was like, "Oh, are you sure?" You know, she wanted to ask me like, "Are you sure?" a whole bunch, which is great because I was making a massive move. You know, making a massive move from this career I had, you know, joined the Navy to do, carried on for 10 years after. I had degrees, we had a new house, we had all this stuff going on, and you know, she didn't understand it at first, and I didn't expect her or anybody to, because it's a crazy thing to do. So if you're okay with that, then that, you know, that's one way to get over it. But when you make such a big change like that, especially those closest to you, they're not going to understand, and that's okay. You know, same like a lot of people don't understand why somebody might do 75 hard or do some crazy, you know, fitness program. Like they don't have to understand. You know, like you have to understand what you're doing. You have to stand by your decision. But if you count on other people to essentially support you, back you, understand what you're doing, that's where you can kind of get into this mental downfall because, oh man, my best friends and my family and these people that I really look up to, they're not supporting me. Am I being stupid? Is this a bad plan? Should I listen to them? And the answer is no. You know, and we'll cover my 5 steps here in a bit, but I also wanted to point out another reason why people, I think, lose so much faith in the corporate world and what they're doing is because they look on social media and they see seemingly everybody has a Lamborghini, has a Rolex, is on the islands all the time, like having fun, making tons of money, buying forex and buying crypto, and just balling out, because everyone shows like the best stuff on social, and then they realize like, oh shit, this job that pays me 120 grand is actually, I'm never going to have a Rolex on 120 grand. I'm never going to have a Lambo. I'm hoping to get, enough credit card room to go on a trip to Tahiti one time. They realize also that like the path they're on has really set them up to be a cog in of somebody else's machine, and it's not going to allow them to financially go do any of the stuff that they actually want to do. And now it's just like, well, shit, what am I doing here? My degree didn't really help with anything. The job I'm on forever, I've been in forever, is not taking me where I want to go. Now I can't leave because the little bit of money that I have, I can't live without that. It's like, oh shit. And then when you do try to leave and you get pushback from people close to you, I see why most people do not make the leap. And I get it. Like, I don't knock people for that because it's extremely difficult to, one, make the leap. And then two, once you're on this side, dude, having my own business now for coming up on 10 years has been more difficult than anything I did in aerospace. Even with hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars of assets on the line for these missions, the vice president of the United States watching our missions, and my name being the last name signed on that jet before the pilot took it, like a lot of pressure. That was absolutely nothing compared to what it's like trying to build and run and grow and scale your own brand. So it's a very difficult thing, but it's not impossible. And like we said earlier, there's more opportunity out there to make money and change careers than there's ever been throughout the course of human history. So if somebody does want to make a change, it is easier and better to do it now than at any other time that there have been humans on this planet.
Yeah, I remember it's been forever ago. I think it was called like The Art of Thinking Big or Psychology of Thinking Big. It's like an old book. It was pretty dense. And just the one
Yeah,
chapter that really stuck out, it was a good book overall. The author mentioned like never tell your like big plans to someone that hasn't done it because they'll find a way
sir.
to talk you out of it. So like if you tell
That's
a
right.
millionaire like, "Hey, I want to make $1 million," the millionaire will be like, "All right, like that's possible, but what are you going to do?"
Right.
Versus the guy that never did it would be like, "No, it's impossible to do," and because they're only thinking like at the level of their accomplishments, obviously,
Right.
and even if their intentions are good, they just don't even kind of can't even visualize that level of success because they haven't even remotely come close to it.
That's right.
Um, uh, but yeah, there's also something else I want to mention. I try to always listen to the guest speaker and then forget like some things like I want to mention to build off their thing.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, a lot of times one pushback I hear often with people not wanting to leave their quote unquote like great life is like, oh, I might have to initially take a pay cut and the quality of my life will go down. I would argue with 9 out of 10
Yeah.
Americans metabolically sick right now and like full of obesity, medical drug dependence, and disease. I'm like, what kind of quality of life are you talking about? You're already at such a low quality life in existence.
Yeah.
It's
It's a good point.
probably going to be impossible to get much lower than that absolute negative of being, like overweight on a bunch of medical drugs. You need like a half a bottle of Xanax just to get up in the morning and go to work again.
Yeah.
And I hear time and time again people go like, oh, like what's going to happen to my quality of life? I'm like, dude, what quality? Like wake up, man, and stop living a life of normalized pathology. There's like
Right.
no quality. You're exhausted all the time. Like what kind, even if you have kids, it's like what kind of example are you setting to your kids being like 40, 50 pounds overweight and constantly putting your work above all else? Obviously
Right.
kids, 80% of what they learn is just from observing you. So if they see you doing that, they're going to do the same thing. And if it's not benefiting you in a positive way, how in the heck do you think it's going to benefit them in any positive way? And stuff of that sort. So there's like the unfortunate thing about like American culture. It's like pathology has been normalized to such a great extent, and
Yeah.
people live like way overworked and way sick, way sicker than they think they are, and they think they like perfectly healthy, et cetera, et cetera. When in fact it's definitely not even close to being the case. Um, but
Yeah. Good
what are
point.
you kind of mentioned the 5 steps a few times. Can you go over those?
Yeah, for sure. And I'd like to back up what you said there. When someone says about, losing their level of quality of life, it's like, man, like you said, most people have no idea what it even feels like to be healthy. They have no idea. They're eating junk. I mean, you just think about the average American life eating like eating trash. Okay, everyone's eating trash. They have all these subscriptions that they're just waiting for new TV shows and movies and stuff to come out. They're consumed with scrolling on social media. They're chasing dopamine hits left and right from all these different things. We're overstimulated with the dopamine hits and the entertainment and the sports and the culture and all this kind of stuff. But and then a lot of people get into hating on one thing or another, whether it be politics or it be sports teams or something. Like, if you just look at all of that in a kind of microcosm, it's kind of a toxic way of living, completely consumed with absorbing other stuff and then deciding I'm going to hate on this stuff all the time and I'm going to try to max out as getting as much of this stuff as possible, especially because all we're really chasing, most people, is dopamine. Like, we're chasing it from all sorts of different places. And that quality of life, when I hear that, that just means that you're too comfortable, but you don't know how much more comfortable and healthy and how much better you could feel by having a healthier, more profitable, frankly, life. Back to the health, like, dude, I didn't really understand what it meant to feel really healthy for a lot of my life because I took it for granted growing up and through the Navy that I was kind of a thin guy. I was always able to have abs. I could always get veiny chest and veiny arms and always, and I could drink alcohol and it wouldn't really affect me and all this and that. But man, once I really cleaned up and got in and started to scrub my blood and I fixed my gut and did all these things, I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to be healthy. But that stuff takes money too. And you can't get that by just, sitting at home and eating Uber Eats and, watching football all weekend long and all that stuff. So, dude, most people's life, when they say the quality of life, like you said, is not a good quality of life. They're just comfortable with it and they are resisting change to break out of that because they don't want to give up all the TV and all the scrolling and sitting on the couch and the level of comfort that they have. So they got to get real. Like, if you want to go over here, you have to leave where you're at. It's as simple as that. A lot of people sit there and they like armchair quarterback talking shit to people online, doing things that they are not willing to do. They're like, man, I'm sitting here on the couch, and someday I'm gonna magically have a Ferrari in my driveway. Well, like, well, how? None of your actions are leading you towards having a Ferrari. None of them. You're not giving other people value. You're not building anything. You're sitting here consuming, scrolling, and just someday it's gonna happen. And that's why I think a lot of people end up hating on the rich people and stuff like that that have gone out and done things. So, anyways, not to get off track there, get a little more light going, but yeah. So the five things that I did without really understanding what I was doing, but it worked out for me, that I tell people all the time, essentially are this. Like, this is for anybody that wants to make a leap and they want to go from a place where they have some sort of comfort and security in some sort of career, or this could even be an entrepreneur. This could be someone that has built a business that is affording them whatever level of life they have now, and they want more, but they know they have to make massive change to go get that life. Like, well, what do you do? There are some steps. So, step number one is to make a plan. It's as simple as that. A lot of people don't even make a plan. They just say, oh, you know what? I'm just going to go do something else. I'm just going to jump. I'm going to quit my job. I have X amount of savings and I'll figure it out. It's probably not going to work. And so when I say make a plan, that means to research and strategize the industry that you want to get into. Like, Google is an incredible thing. Grok on the X app is incredible. You can ask it anything and get a great answer with references immediately. So let's just say somebody wants to get into, let's say somebody is in corporate HR and they want to go do a t-shirt company. Okay, well, make a plan why your t-shirt company is going to stand out and is actually going to be something that people should care about in the marketplace. And then learn, what does it take to run a successful t-shirt company? Like, you can Google this stuff and find business plans on very successful t-shirt companies. But you need to understand what you're getting into, which is why I say to make a plan. But caveat, this is also where a lot of people get stuck. They sit there and they research and they analyze and they write their business plan, they tweak the business plan, and they just keep in this perpetual cycle of researching and waiting for the right plan and the right moment and the right amount of money, and they never get into execution. So even though step one is make a plan, you can't sit in that world forever or you'll never get off of home plate. Okay. So make a plan is one. And then number two, right after that, is be ready to toss that plan into the trash can and make a new one if needed, because chances are it's not going to go the way you think it is. Like it probably is not. But that doesn't mean you ditch your North Star. Like if you want to still make that t-shirt company, or if you want to, whatever it is, you want to start an auto club or you want to start a tech company, that's still what you do. You still go towards that. But chances are the initial map that you made is not going to be the one that takes you directly there. And that's okay. So you have to be willing to adapt and not be so emotionally and financially committed to that first plan that if it doesn't work, when it doesn't work, that you just fall off and quit. You can't. You have to stick with it. I could come up with 100 million different analogies on this. Um, I'll just think of one real quick. Like one of my favorite companies that I look up to the most is First Form, that Andy Frisella built. Supplement company. But dude, a lot of people see him, and he's known for his cars now. He's got a lot of incredible cars. I was fortunate enough to go to his house, I don't know, like a year and a half ago, and go into his garage, and the cars are perfect. And these new cars, classic cars, like just it's one of the coolest collections I've ever seen. So people see that, but they don't realize that it took him almost a decade to make any money with his first supplement store. He was sleeping in the back of the store on a piss stain mattress. And then they thought they were going to do a supplement store, and then they started to come up with their own product and all this and that. They adapted along the way. He knew he wanted to have this big brand to help people and sell a lot of supplements and be in this industry. But the plan they had on day one had to change and it had to evolve and they had to stick with it to get there. So that's a really good trait of a successful entrepreneur is to be able to adapt and pivot and overcome and recalibrate and do all those things. So this is when I hear people say just don't quit. That is true, but it's not just don't quit and keep beating the plan that's not working over and over and over and over again. Don't quit to me means yes, you keep going, but you have to be smart and analyze the data you're getting from your business plan. And if it's not working, you got to try to do different things. You need to test different things. Maybe you need to sell a completely different product, change the color of the shirt, go to a different selling platform, change your marketing, whatever it is. So step one, make a plan. Number two is be ready to toss that plan to the trash and to pivot and adapt and keep going to where you want to go. So those two, we basically rinse and repeat those two forever now. Like my business it has evolved a ton. The very first one, like I said, was supposed to be a brewery. That actually didn't end up happening because my partner ended up getting into solar and put all of his money in solar, couldn't do the brewery. So then I opened a nutrition store out here with a good friend of mine, James Stratman. He moved out here from St. Louis, had this great plan for Peak Nutrition, asked if I would help him open it, and I did for a year and a half. I rolled with him, opened that thing as is his working partner in that business. That was kind of my first entry into business. And at the same time, I was still brewing, because I was still doing the brewery, but now I had beer and brewery and all that over here, and we had nutrition and first form inspiration and all that stuff here, and eventually that merged together, and that's where my first brand called Earn Your Booze came from. Kind of a work hard, play hard. If you drink, here's some things that I think you should do with your physical and your mental health, handling your responsibilities, all the things that come along with being responsible when you drink. And if you do that, cool, have some drinks. From there, the next, and this is kind of how this adapted. From there, people would always ask, well, hey, I like this. I like this brand. We sold a ton of Earn Your Boost t-shirts. I'm wearing one right now, actually. And hats and flags and cups and all these shaker cups and all these things. But people would always ask, well, hey, how do I earn it? Like, what does that mean? I like this lifestyle, but how do I earn it? And so that was another light bulb that went off that said, well, we need to teach people how they can earn it. So that's where this thing came from. Earn it
I
all.
was just
This
going
is
to
our,
say,
yeah, this is our
just slight
answer.
variations. Now I see where it's gone.
Totally. So that started out as essentially fitness, nutrition, and mindset. Like getting people healthier and making them mentally stronger. In life, and that has now evolved into having a clinical partner in it, where we can take health very deep and serious, down with DNA and all these different things. But and now we have a men's retreat called True North that we do in Sedona every quarter. Our next one's actually in July, a little bit more than a quarter. But I mention all that stuff because in business, we always have to make a plan, execute the plan, analyze how it went, and then decide to change the plan most likely or tweak it to make sure that we keep going and growing. One of my favorite things of all time is Theodore Roosevelt's "The Man of the Arena" speech, and essentially talks about like all the respect goes to the guys and the girls that are in the arena playing the game because they are learning what victory feels like and what defeat looks like. And on the flip side, the people that are in the stands watching, they don't know victory or defeat. They're not even in the damn game. So in the business, you have to jump in and make decisions and see what happens because of your decisions. Live with the ramifications of your decisions, whether they're good or bad or otherwise. You got to be in the game. So this is not a game where you just set something in motion and let it go forever. Like you have to always be pushing, learning, adapting, and going through it. So make a plan, be ready to toss that plan in the trash or pivot. And then number three is communicate along the way, especially if you have a family or those closest to you, because they are really not going to understand why you have to spend so many hours in the office, why you have to be traveling, why you're always on social media, why you're always doing these things. And it's not good enough to say, hey kids, someday when daddy makes a ton of money, I'll buy you all the gifts you want, we'll go to Jamaica, we'll go to Vail, we'll go do a big European tour, it's going to be great, we'll do all this stuff. Like, dude, chances are it's going to take longer than you want it to, it's going to cost more money, it's going to be more difficult. And if you don't communicate with them along the way, eventually they're just going to be like, well, mom or dad doesn't care about us. All they care about is their business. How many of the classic movies do we hear, like, like Richie Rich, like where his dad was just loved his son, but was always working and just kind of was just not really there too much in his life. You don't want to be like that. So you got to communicate, especially with your family along the way when you get into this business thing. And that also means, like, when you're leaving that level of comfort and security, communicate why you're leaving. Communicate what the plan is. Communicate how it's going to work out. Communicate what you need from them to be successful, to keep going. Like, maybe that's telling your spouse, hey, I need you to push me and not let me be lazy. Don't let me play video games, help me stop drinking, whatever it is, because I know that I need to be completely dedicated to this thing so we can build and earn this life that we want for the family. So you got to communicate. So that's number three. And then number four is believe in yourself. These are some recurring themes that we've heard here on this call. I said a while back, if you're waiting for other people to believe in you and support you, you're done. You have to believe in you, because this is going to be the most difficult thing you've ever done, leaving that level of comfort and security. And especially if you're getting into your own business, the only person that can pull you through it is you. It's as simple as that. So we talk about this in our coaching calls all the time. Like, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and talk to yourself the right way. You have to believe in you more than anybody else. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So that's number four. And then number five is get started. Like, just actually start. If I go back to step one real quick, most people get stuck in the make a plan phase. They never get into execution phase. You have to start. You have to be a man or a woman in the arena, actually in the game, actually fighting, and actually learning what's going on. Then you can apply that phrase, don't quit. But people try to apply don't quit somewhere up, further back in the plan. And it's like, dude, you're not even in the game yet. What do you mean don't quit? You haven't even messed anything up yet. You haven't lost any money yet. You haven't made any horrible decisions yet. Like, you got to be in the game and have shit go wrong. Then you can say, don't quit. You know what I mean? So those are the five.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious, have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Eugene Trufkin. Now let's dive back into the podcast.
How do you do? I know sometimes I'm referring more to your like men's retreat here at True North. I know sometimes like one time, for example, I got like a 70-year-old guy that wanted to do like a coaching program and make the change. You know, he's
Yeah.
like very overweight on a bunch of medical drugs. And, at the end of the call, he's like, oh, right now it's not the right time. I got to do it next year. I'm like, dude, you're freaking 70 years old already. Like, how do you ever run into these situations? And like, what goes through your mind when you hear? Because I'm pretty sure you get
Yeah.
a lot of people that they say they want to change, but they don't want to make the change to cause change. They want to kind of
Right.
basically stay the same and expect change somehow miraculously to happen.
Yeah, I mean, everybody likes the idea of being in a different position. They like the idea of being healthier, looking great in the mirror. They like the idea of having their dream car in the driveway. They like the idea of having this life that is different from what they have currently, but they do not like the work that it takes to put into it. So that's where, us as coaches, if you will, or leaders, whatever, it's our responsibility to show them the light, but then help push them or nudge them or pull them along into it because we know that's what they really want. Because a lot of people will not get out of their own way. You know, most people are going to stay stuck in their own ways because they don't have anyone other than themselves in this kind of magical, you know, uh, life that they envision for themselves to get after. But you have to put in the work and get after it. So yeah, when you have somebody that's like, man, I want to change, but it's not the right time, especially if they're like you said, it's 70. It's like, dude, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, the
Like,
average American dies at 76. I'm like, dude, you got
what are you
6 years
talking
left,
about?
man.
You're kind of there, like
Yeah.
let's get, one of the things I ask people sometimes is like, do you feel that you are confident with your own health right now to enter the second half of your life? And if you ask them, like seriously, do you feel great if you're 40 years old, let's say, you're going into the second half of your life? Are you super confident that you are set up to handle disease, to handle broken bones, to handle the challenges that come later in life right now? Are you as good as you can get? Most people, if they're honest, would be like, shit, well, no. I'm just hoping for, one day I'm gonna really take it seriously. You know what I mean? And so sometimes like that question is all it really takes is like, well, dude, like what are you waiting for? Time is going. When it comes to health, like you mentioned, True North, True North, it's men only right now. We are going to do a women's retreat, but it's application based. Like we select the 30 guys that run with us every quarter. And one of the reasons is because it is physically strenuous. And we go, for example, I won't give you all the secrets on it because I want to show you someday. But but sometimes we go on long hikes, like 7, 8 mile hikes. Sometimes we are in water. Sometimes we are practicing, learning how to essentially fight a bit. In a safe environment. Like we're doing physically strenuous things, waking up early, going to bed late. Jumping in cold rivers, like doing a lot of different things. And if you can't do that, you're not going to get the experience that we want you to get out of the event. So if we let somebody come to it that cannot, you know, run a mile straight or a half a mile straight or can't do a 7 mile hike, what are we going to do? Just leave them behind? All right,
The
Bob. Well,
Russian infantry says yes.
yeah, 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 exactly. Okay, Bob, we're all leaving for the day. We're going to go on this epic mountain hike. And at the top of the highest peak in Sedona, we have a whole lesson planned. And we're bringing our drones and photo crews and have a great time. And there's a couple other surprises we're going to do up there. But since you can't hike it, you can just go ahead and stay here and, just chill. No, like we can't do that. So we got to be real with people. And I think that to answer your question, we got to be real with people. If somebody is oh, morbidly obese, if somebody is not healthy, we should not blow smoke up their ass and tell them they're healthy. We need to let them know that, hey, if you don't make a change here, there are real ramifications. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to live forever because anyone can get hit by a bus at any time, or bad things happen to people all the time, even if it's not like a physical trauma from outside source. But the reality is, like, you should set yourself up to be as healthy and capable as possible. So the easiest way to do that is to get lean and mean. Having lean muscle on your body helps fight cancer. A lot of women, especially when they get older, fall down. Why does grandma fall down one time and her hip and her leg and her knee and her elbow and her arm shatter like glass? Well, chances are it's because her bones are weak because she hasn't been keeping pressure on her bones. The bones need pressure to stay strong or the body just kind of falls apart. If we just lay around for 10 years, do you think the body's going to be strong, or is it going to start to get soft and just kind of melt into the ground? You know what I mean? It just starts to adapt. So, we got to be real with people that, like, if you don't take care of yourself, like, in my opinion, you're not doing yourself or your family or your business a good service. You're doing it a disservice. Especially if you
Yeah.
have people that look up to you. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You need people that look up to you to be able to count on you, to look at you and be like, okay, this guy or this girl is here. They're here for me. They're leading me. Maybe they rely on you for money, or they rely on you for leadership or safety or security or whatever it is. Um, if we just keep it real with people, that's really what a lot of people want. People want the truth, whether they want it or not. They want to be told the truth. Like, there's so many people that just blow smoke, and they try to sell fitness programs standing in front of Lamborghinis. And it's like, what the fuck does that have to do with getting healthy? Like, can you actually get me to move my body? Can you get me to eat a certain way? Can you inspire me to actually do the things that I need to get healthy? And that's the easiest way to choose a coach or someone that you want to lead you in health or in business. Does this person, this is what's the question you can ask yourself, does this person I'm considering hiring actually inspire me to take action? Because a lot of people will, like, sign up for a big name program because it seems like the popular thing to do, or this person sold a lot of books, or they're online famous or whatever, and everyone else is doing it. If that person doesn't actually make you take action one way or another, then that's not the coach for you. That's not the leader for you. You could have, somebody that has almost no social media following, but just connects with you just the right way and actually makes you do whatever it is that you hire them to do. That's the right coach for you. They don't have to be the biggest name or the biggest, flashiest thing out there. What matters is you taking action, because everyone sits in this little phase of wanting to go to a different life and not willing to put in the work to earn it, you know?
Yeah, and I find honestly, like just the absolute best coaches are oftentimes the least popular. I've hired many mentors myself that have like
Yeah,
no following, almost no following, or maybe not even on social media altogether, like straight up
correct.
geniuses. And a lot of times the people that become very popular, they have to like, in a sense, sell a very dumbed down version of their message to appeal to the masses, and oftentimes
Yeah,
just create like another fake persona, like some kind of character, and they play that character
yeah,
on screen basically. You never know the true person in reality because they're oftentimes completely different. I like
that's
the
right.
one of my favorite books is Animal Farm by George Orwell. And like the funny thing is the pigs, in order to inspire the sheep to get them to follow them, they always use the simple phrase like two legs bad, four legs good. And you notice like a lot
Yeah,
of the fitness people or business people, all the same, like keto bad or carnivore bad, vegetarians good or vegetarians bad, carnivore
right.
good. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like all these simple dumb. There are no absolutes in literally anything from business to health to mental health, whatever. And anytime anyone claims any message in an absolute type of way, instantly like run away like as
Yes.
far as possible, because it's total gimmicky BS, and it's not going to benefit you in any way. It'll just benefit the influencer by you buying their $20
Yeah,
customized program that they sent out just to 2,000 people like instantly somehow, but it's all customized. I have no clue how.
exactly right.
Um,
They do that because they're trying to scale, and they're trying to service the masses to make more money. But especially when it comes to, like, health and like acute medicine and stuff like that, that really is an intimate personal
yeah.
thing. You need to be able to understand somebody, and especially, like you and I do, like, if we analyzing data inside the body, like, you really need to take some time to do that. And that does not happen with a cookie cutter PDF.
Hmm.
That it can't happen. So to your point, like, I think one of my, not I think, I know, one of my favorite mentors and guys that I'm glad to call my friend now is named Vic Keller, a guy that has really not been on social media for his entire life. I was one of the first guests on his podcast when he just started doing it maybe a year ago. The dude has built and ran more successful businesses than probably freaking anybody you can think of. But he didn't even have a social media presence. He wasn't viral. A lot of people make their money by being viral on social media and finding cheap things to sell at scale. The people that I really want to learn from are the people that have built real businesses and done it, gone through decades of ups and downs on a roller coaster of business and have emerged extremely successful. That's who I want to learn from. I
Hmm.
could give a shit whether or not you're viral on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. You know, it's the people that have actually done something that is who I want to learn from, and that's Vic. We did a podcast, and I think we recorded for like over 3 hours, and we got done, and I was like, dude, I felt like I just went through a one-on-one master class of business mentorship. It was incredible. Like, we literally left there. Me and my business partners went down and wrote notes for about an hour after that. And this was not a guy trying to wow anybody, or trying to like get you into his funnel or anything like that. Just hearing his real experience come through was incredible.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, Justin, I know you mentioned you had like about an hour here, and we're coming up in an hour. Are there any other topics you would like to cover? I can go in any direction.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple. I have a little bit more time. Yeah, I would love to talk a little bit about more about health with you because that's originally how we connected. You and our good friend D'Lo, got him jacked at. Was he 50 yet?
He was 49, turning 50.
Yeah, I was thinking almost 50. Such a great guy. A lot of people don't think that it's possible to have a six pack, be jacked, and be healthy in your 40s and 50s, and we both know that that is utter BS. But I would love to hear your take on that for the skeptics that are like, no, I have kids, I have a job, I have fill in the blank, all the standard things. Well, it's like, well, yeah, so do I. I got kids. I have multiple jobs with my businesses. You know what I mean? I have a lot of stuff going on, and I'm still able to stay in pretty damn good shape. D'Lo, same thing. Like a lot of guys are able to do it, but what do you tell the skeptic that's like, oh, that's no, that must be steroids is what they always say. Must be steroids, and I don't have time for that. My life couldn't possibly allow for me to get into a phenomenal shape. I know it's complete BS, but I'd love
Yeah.
to hear your thoughts on it.
No, they definitely have time. I got this from Robert Kawasaki in
Yeah.
one of his podcasts. He mentioned that people use excuses to avoid the stress of taking responsibility for change, because
Hmm.
excuses shut your mind down to any solution instantly and maybe actually provide some relief, because sometimes some change is stressful to make, like think through and actually then make the leap, which could be stressful. And a lot of people just come up with the excuse, the typical one is, I don't have time, I don't have money. You kind of mentioned, rewinding back a little bit, like, oh, being healthy is expensive. I actually ran the numbers, and the average American spends eight to $16,000 a year on non-essential expenses every single year without even a second thought. Some people
Hmm.
even way more. These non-essential expenses include alcohol, eating out, subscription services. I'm like 50 pounds overweight, but I know I need the new iPhone model for some reason,
Right.
because that's like so important and going to improve the quality of my life.
Right.
So those same people that are, have normalized mental and physical illness in their life, and you can see it. And the sad part is when they talk to you, they're like, I eat healthy. I'm like, dude, no, you don't. You can't look like this when you eat healthy or live even in a slight resemblance of like what a human being needs to live like.
Right. Right.
Um, and you tell them like, hey, like you need to like, this is a long conversation. You need to buy organic, let's say, or whole food. They're like, oh, that's too expensive. I'm like, oh, it's too expensive. Well, you're already admitted that you're spending eight to $16,000 a year on non-essential expenses, and a 2,000 calorie a day diet of all organic food, 100% USDA organic certified food, is about 6,000 a year. Okay, so that's already way less than you're spending on all these non-essential expenses.
Right.
And most of the time they don't have like a comeback to it, but yet they still continue down that
Hmm.
path, which indicates that they have a mind virus, some kind of
Yes.
belief system that's leading to certain behavior patterns that are leading to their obesity, misery, and disease. And talking about the time, I mean, look at you, look at D'Lo. D'Lo's like two kids, wife. I think he has like 10 dogs now. I don't know. I lost track of how many dogs he's already purchased.
Yep.
And he was running, at least at the time, a couple of different businesses. I don't know if he has new projects now or not. And he's 50, and he still got super jacked. I can promise you, it was like completely drug free. And we didn't even have him using any supplements. I think I just had him doing like a protein shake, some called collagen protein shake, not even like a whey protein isolate.
Yeah.
And that's it. Just relied on like the basics, like getting good programming in, mastering sleep, eating real food, like stuff that the barrier to entry is accessible to almost anyone,
Right.
almost anyone. And if this guy with like multiple businesses and kids and young kids and a wife, et cetera, can do it, it's like, of course you can do it, you know?
Yeah.
It's unfortunately, it's just once again this kind of normalization of mental and physical pathology in the country as a whole.
Yes.
Um, and until we start seeing it for what it is, and people see like, hey, this isn't normal to live this way. This is completely wrong and deteriorating the quality of my mental and physical health, and thus my relationships with everyone around me. We can you can give them 5 steps, you can give them 10 steps that was passed down by Jesus himself, and they're still not gonna follow it, you know.
No.
They'll still come up with some kind of reframe, some kind of story to keep to status quo. And um, and it's sad. It's low vibration type of energy. A lot of like self-esteem issues. A lot of people
Yes.
can't even envision a better life for themselves. You know what I mean? Even if you show
Exactly
them
right.
the exact roadmap. I mean, literally, just do these steps, and you'll become success in ABC, whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
They still won't do it.
Yeah.
They still won't do it. Even if they do, they'll figure out some type of way to sabotage the process and talk themselves out of it eventually. Some type of way.
100%. You know, speaking of those people, especially that don't think they have enough time or money or whatever, it's like, man, if people would just master the basics, you would realize how much healthier you could actually be. You know, because like you said, everyone's wasting money on subscriptions and cheap food and all this kind of junk. And it's like, dude, if you would just move your body on a regular basis, and I'm not even saying you have to go do CrossFit or have a big box gym membership or anything, but move your body. Like, at least start walking. Like, use your body. Like, walk, walk, squat, hinge. Like, do these different movements. Use your body, sleep, eat good food, hydrate, get sunlight. I mean, most people weren't even doing that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even mention any sort of crazy program or any specific diet or anything like that. And I like what you said there about the food. Man, if people realized how much money they're wasting on non-nutrient dense food, it's insane. Like essentially it's this, like people are buying the fast food, the cheap food, and they don't realize how expensive that is versus having like grass-fed bison and organic produce. But when you have those nutrient-dense foods, especially the meats, you get satiated and full
Yeah.
way
Yep.
easier. Like you can pound a whole pizza and some wings and some chips and finally be full, or have a solid piece of bison steak and some real sweet potatoes, and it looks like it's half the food. You're just as full, and
Yeah.
you're also getting the new. So, anyways, it's a lot easier than people think, but they have to get out of their own way.
Yeah, and again, the bigger picture is unfortunately American culture has normalized mental and physical illness to such an extent.
Yes.
Such an extent. I mean, like half of American women are on some type of psychiatric medication,
Hmm.
and that's like just the ones that have the money to get a diagnosis. I could
Sure.
easily probably round up to 75%. And they're gonna be mothers one day and passing down these belief systems to their kids.
Yeah.
And no wonder the family unit is such a disaster in the US, and it all starts at the family level. That's
Yes.
where good practices begin, good family values, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's like a disaster. I don't know if things are going to turn around for your kids by the time they're starting to date and stuff like that, but they're kind of, I guess, lucky to not be dating at the moment with what's available at the dating pool
Yeah.
currently.
Yeah. I love raising my little one up from nothing. She's 6 now. And I love the opportunity because it's like, man, I can have conversations like this with people like you and look around to see how the world really is, and really start to set her up for success, and not just ignore the fact that she is growing and absorbing everything like a sponge. Like I'm very intentional with what she's allowed to put on TV if she puts on TV. But I also, I'm constantly feeding her mind with, things that are, allowing her to step into scary situations. She asked me to go work out and go on walks and runs now. I've had her on stage with me when I've spoken, probably close to a dozen times, probably more than a dozen times now, actually being 6 years old. I had her, she was 2 months old, and I had her strapped to my chest at one of my Earn Your Booze events. So now she's already overcome public speaking, and she'll stand up in front of crowds of hundreds of people and has no worries. So to your point, I really like raising kids, even in this crazy world, because it's like another opportunity and challenge to help, kind of raise them the right way.
Yeah, and you're doing it the right way because that's how I stayed so consistent. I started off with being raised by my grandmother on an off-grid farm and
Oh,
learning about biodynamic
cool.
farming and sustainable systems there. And then
Yeah.
my dad got me into the gym with him at 10. I was already
Hmm.
lifting weights within the 2.5 pound dumbbells, starting at the very end of the rack.
Yeah.
And he got me into there. And then I remember one day I watched the movie Predator, and I'm like, oh, Dad, I want to be just like that. And he's like, you got to take karate classes. Boom. Next day I was in Taekwondo, dude. you know,
Cool. Yeah.
and just one thing led to another. And here I'm 40 now, still very lean, perfect metabolic and hormonal health, still
Yeah.
working out 5 days a week, completely pain free. I have no joint pain or anything, um, clear skin, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. So, dude, you just got to, if you just take care of yourself and just master the basics, but the consistent application of those basics that are pretty much accessible to everyone at a low cost to almost no cost because it's far more costly indirectly and directly to live a life of obesity, misery, and disease.
Yes.
Dude, your life, it will not solve every single one of your problems, but your life upgrade will be tremendous,
100%.
huge. And uh, I don't know. I don't honestly. I think me and you don't have a good pain tolerance because I don't know how people that live a life of normalized obesity, misery, and disease deal with that pain every day. I wouldn't be able to. So I think it's a reverse situation. Like me and you are the weak ones, and we're trying to
Sure.
avoid all that pain by taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the irony in that story reversal.
I do love that analogy where it says choose your hard. It's either going to be hard because you're obese and sick and diseased, or choose your hard and get up early, go to the gym, do cold plunges, and not eat all the food that makes you feel super happy and comfortable. Um, but even the food thing, I don't agree with. I think the most tasty food is the stuff that I eat.
Yeah,
Like
me
having a
too.
beautiful ribeye or a New York, strip steak and some aged cheese and some, sweet potatoes and like this sourdough bread. If I eat bread, and I'm like, that is the most delicious stuff for me. If I have pizza or some junky ass food, I'm like, that's to me like I can taste how that might is not agreeing with my body. A
Mhm.
lot of people just need to listen to their body because the body will tell you by like signs like gas and bloating and discomfort and stuff. If you eat something and your body is kind of tooting afterwards and you feel kind of like bogged down, I need to take a nap, or you don't feel that great, well, that means you probably just ate something that doesn't agree with your body.
Mhm.
Listen to your body. You should be able to eat a big meal and leave there and sure be full, but be okay, let your digestion do the work and let just go about your day. But it's as simple as that. People just need to listen to their body more, especially when it comes to food and how it's reacting in the body.
Yeah, and I think one challenge to that I've observed is America's hardcore dependence on medical drugs. Because
Oh yeah.
medical drugs suppress those cries for pain that your body is constantly crying out for. Oh, you got
Right.
depression? Boom, let's just crush it with antidepressants. No,
Right.
like when you have depression, that's your body's way of telling you, like, hey, something's wrong here. There's kind of some kind of story gap going on here, and that needs to be dealt with, not to like pound a half a bottle of antidepressants with a Red Bull in the morning just so you can make it through another day of work. And
Right.
that's like the medical model these days,
Right.
dude. It's like before going to a doctor's office, you have an obese person. After going to a doctor's office, you have an obese person on 3 medical drugs. What kind of
Yeah.
before and after is that? And
Dude, it's crazy.
and that's like totally no one's questioning it. No one is questioning it. And I'm like, dude, that is crazy. Like, how could a person even stay in business practicing this way? Moreover, it'd be illegal to practice that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it is wild. The way pharmaceuticals have become like food for a lot of people, it's really unbelievable. I actually went through something last month, actually. January 1st, I woke up, and do you know what a heart PVC is?
No.
A premature ventricular contraction. It's essentially like your heart is supposed to beat on a regular rhythm, right? And it should just stay like that. So you're not doing any exercise or anything. Well, what a PVC is where it kind of like starts to get off beat. It might slow down and then it hits hard once or twice and kind of gets back on rhythm, but on a different beat. And then it steadies out again. I've had it most of my life. Every once in a while, usually it just happens like as I'm like kind of laying down, like ready to go to sleep or something. But on January 1st, it just turned on like a switch, and it was just like all over the place, switching rhythm, switching beats nonstop. And so a couple days later, I went into a cardiologist, and they put a heart monitor on me, and all this and that. And I'm sitting there, and this doctor who is literally morbidly obese is looking at me and says, "Well, doesn't look like we need to change your diet or your exercise because it's people that are not in shape. They could be at higher risk for heart disease and this and that." She said that like three times. While I'm looking at her, I'm like, "Lady, you're over 300 pounds, and you're like 5'4". Like you, can you please hear yourself? Like, take care of yourself." But during that conversation, she mentioned two medications, maybe a medication for this, but we'll probably start you off with this. And like didn't have any data on my blood, didn't have any data on my heart because we hadn't even put the monitor on yet, and was already trying to condition me to like come back and get medication because that's, in her words, that's where we're probably going to have to go with this and get medication. I thought that
Hmm.
was crazy because within 30 minutes of leaving there, I talked with my business partners, Adam and Brad. Um, I don't call them biohackers anymore. They're like human optimization wizards. They know how to, read all the DNA and blood work and all this stuff. Well, they call me and they're like, "Dude, we're looking at your blood work that you just did in September. You have a severe vitamin D deficiency, and you're taking a calcium supplement, and the pathways are probably getting messed up in your heart. It's sending it all into these different, contractions, essentially." And so started taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D and some K2, and lo and behold, it stopped, and I'm good. And like literally, my heart feels stronger than it has ever felt in my life. And I didn't get on medication, even though, but that was the original thing the doctor wanted me to do. It's absolutely insane that without knowing me or having any data, pills, pills, pills. So, but that in general is what happens. People get scared about high cholesterol or about, with diabetes or all these different things. And they think the answer is this magical pill, and it's not.
Hmm.
The answer
Yeah.
is getting back to the basics of what does your body actually need? How are you treating it? Like the environment, your epigenetics. What has your body been going through the last 10, 20, 30 years of your life? Chances are there are a lot of changes that your body can make and needs to make to get healthy and get rid of the situation that is calling for medication. But a lot of people don't get there because they just think the answer for everything is some sort of pill or medication.
Yeah, and as long as they're wearing a white coat and have a name tag, they must know what they're talking about, you know.
That
But
that's what was,
for some reason they
yeah.
can't even do it for themselves,
No.
but somehow they're going to teach you to do it for you. There's one interesting, so I've never seen a happy and healthy person need medical drugs. So why not just focus on getting a person happy and healthy, you
Right.
know? And
Right.
then this whole genetic argument, it's like maybe that applies to like one out of a couple thousand
Right.
patients, you know? And even for those people, it's like, yes, you got bad luck and got bad genetics in this area, but genetics loads the gun, but your decisions in life pull the trigger, you know, and you still
Yes.
have a lot of responsibility. And a lot of times I was at least raised to take personal responsibility for actions, even a lot of times when it's not your fault, because that way the power still stays with you. You know,
Right.
you don't fall into this like victim pathway that basically strips you away from all your ability to take action and actually change in some kind of meaningful way.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it goes back to kind of the disgusting nature of normalizing mental and physical pathology in like American culture. And even it's even present in the military. Like I used to be
Yeah.
a holistic health coach in the US Army Reserve Center, and like literally 70% of people there were like obese, you
Right.
know? It was a reserve unit, you know, reserve units, but still they could be called up and in 3 months you got to be like somewhere like fighting the Russians or something like that, you know, that dude, they would not be ready in 3 months. I guarantee you, for
No.
sure.
No, it is crazy how many people in those dangerous positions or positions that, potentially could see danger, military, police, fire, paramedics, doctors, like it's like, man, what is going on? It's crazy. When I'm sitting there looking at this morbidly obese doctor telling me about medication, I'm like, honestly, if we were sitting there and this was a fit doctor, a woman, male, doesn't matter, but you could see they're in shape. We could talk about working out. We could talk about the healthy food we like to eat. And then she was looking at my data and then talked about pharmaceuticals. I would take a lot more weight in that. I would actually look into it more. But when I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I can't take you seriously. Like you're obviously not even doing what you know you need to be doing. So in my opinion, like I'm not interested. I'm gonna go talk to somebody else. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
want to talk to someone that's actually doing what they know they need to do.
Started trying to convince clients to become healthy to not need a lot of the surgeries he was providing because he was a surgeon at a
Yeah,
big hospital,
yeah,
and he ended up getting fired for that. Surgery is a big money maker for hospitals as well. But still,
sure,
that's like what an honorable health practitioner does is they save the pills
right,
and the surgeries as like the absolute last resort when honest attempts of change were already made, honest and educated,
sure,
pathways of change have been tried. um, but not the case. I mean, I remember Paul Chek, last time I spoke to him, he mentioned just the average time spent with the doctor in the US was 5 minutes before they diagnose you and give you a treatment plan.
right,
And I'm like, dude, like I hired Stuart McGill before and Brian Carroll. The average time just to assess a person's lower back for low back pathologies is like 3 hours,
right,
just a segment of the body. You know what I mean? Moreover, get a whole general picture in like 5 minutes, and somehow you're supposed to come up with a reasonable conclusion. And at the end of the day, the only way to change chronic disease is to change the person that's causing it. So
yeah,
how is it meeting? It's a problem at the emotional and thinking dimension, and they're trying to meet it at a biological level.
right,
And obviously, you're not meeting the problem at the level of the problem, so it's no surprise the person keeps getting sicker and sicker.
yep, yeah. I'm really hoping that if anything comes out of the change in our health and human services with RFK, I'm hoping that there is more logic and more professionalism that comes into these areas that are there to keep us healthy or to prevent disease or stop disease. Because so much of it, like you just said, is cool. 5 minutes, here's your pill. Dude, you don't know anything about that
Mhm.
person. Like that is not actually helping them. Like when are we going to start talking about nutrition and exercise and sleep and sunlight before prescribing something?
Yeah,
Like we need to actually, but I think that really just becomes that's happening because so many people are just making so much money off of it. They don't
exactly.
really, they don't really give a shit. They're not
Yep.
and I was about to say maybe I don't fault some of the doctors for it, but it's like, no, like actually I do. Because there's no reason that you as an individual can't push back against whatever the rules and regulations are at your hospital or at your clinic. Like just because this is the way it's done, okay, well, you're still a piece of shit if you follow along with that and you know it's wrong.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
And it's like
Like,
they swore an oath to provide the best possible treatment plan for their patients.
yeah,
And it's clear these medical drugs aren't doing shit because Americans are more medically drugged out. They're the most medically drugged out humans in the history of the entire human race, but yet are still the sickest humans in
right.
literally the entire history of all 28 human species that have come and gone. Clearly, dude, if you keep doing the same thing that's not working, it's not going to magically work all of a sudden. And I
Right.
think it's like the patients have to start calling out these doctors
Yeah.
on these medical drug dealers. I don't even want to slander the doctor name because it's an honorable title when it's appropriately applied. But just a lot of the drug dealers these days are just not thinking. They're not real health care professionals. They're very sick themselves. You go to any medical convention that looks like an obesity convention, all
Right.
medically drugged out, haggard, many years older, looking older than they actually are. And yeah, they sound fancy with their vocabulary jargon and stuff like that. But trust me, like 99% of them don't have a clue about how to be healthy. Moreover, teach you how to be healthy. Believe me, that is like my opinion, but believe me, that is close to fact.
I agree.
They're so far detached from living life sustainably themselves too because of how medical school works. It ingrains if you're not dying for your job, you're not doing your job into these people. And then like they go and tell a person to stop doing that for themselves because their blood pressure is too high. I'm like, well, when was the last time you stopped taking 40 patients a day? You know? And
Right.
they'll reframe, oh well, that's just how it is. No, dude, that's not how it is. You need to change the system if it's not working. That's your responsibility as a
Totally.
healthcare provider.
Totally. My uncle is I mean, frankly, a world-renowned eye surgeon over in Palisades. Actually, their house just burned down, unfortunately, during that fire. But one thing that I always, when I used to think about doctors when I was a kid growing up, I would always look at him because I'm like, he was always up early. He's a runner. Like he's run the Boston Marathon, and he's a big runner, always in shape, always fit, always energetic. And I'm like, that's the kind of guy that I want taking care of me, whether it's my eyes or my blood or my brain or my heart or whatever. I want someone that is walking the walk, that is, living by example. And I always just love that about him. And but then I realized as I was getting older, I was like, man, he's actually the exception to the norm,
Hmm.
you know? Unfortunately, but I always thought that cool when I'm growing up. Doctors are the ones out there. They run, they work out, they eat healthy, they get in there, they're inspiring other people to get healthy. They're, giving them their knowledge from college and in school to get them all fixed up and healthy. And because that's just what they do. They're so passionate about it. They take care of themselves better than anyone. And it's like, no, actually, most of the industry does not do that.
Yeah,
And most of them are the first ones to put themselves on pills and to put people on other pills. And it's like, dude, it's
yeah,
wild. So I don't know where the healthcare system is going per se, but I know that everybody out there, doctors or people in the public, need to master the basics of health and at least work on striving to master them, because health is everything, dude. Like it really is. Like health, nothing matters if you don't have your health. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank account. It doesn't matter what kind of car you have or what your stock portfolio is like or anything, how much jewelry you're wearing. If you're sick and dead and you can't enjoy it, what's the point?
yeah.
Like I love what you said earlier when you were describing, you're like, I'm 40 years old, I'm lean, my skin is clear, I'm mentally clear, like I work out every day without pain, like I'm moving. Like to me, that is success. That is wealth. That is something to be proud of. Like I don't give a shit what somebody's car is like. I want to see like how do you treat yourself? What kind of shape are you in? Because that'll show me if you respect yourself or not.
Hmm.
Like and maybe I want to learn from you if because you have a 200-foot yacht, but like that's a whole other subject. When it comes down to like man to man, it's like, okay, I can see how you think about yourself just by the way you appear. And that really does say a lot,
Yeah, and
you know.
you're totally bringing up a good point. I mean, it's like whether you want to be like a computer programmer or a president or like a business owner, it's like, dude, how far are you going to go with depression, or like
Hmm.
chronic low back pain? Like your health, your mental and physical health acts as a ceiling for how much you can do and how much quality of life you're going to have. So you could be, doing well at work and sought after and respected in your field, but if your health is like a C, your quality of life will be at a C, and it won't go
Right.
past that.
Yeah.
And you might reframe and make up
Yeah.
stories of how you're feeling. Trust me, you're not. Ah, man, there's one time when I was writing my second book, and I used to do grocery store tours, and so many times people would come up with me like, oh, I eat this factory farm food or processed food for forever, and I'm completely fine. Maybe they're probably like 30 pounds overweight on two medical drugs with knee pain at age 30. And for them, that's like completely fine. It's like that's how delusional people have become.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the crazy thing is one more analogy here for you. When I've talked to some people that are very well off financially, wealthy guys, and and they don't want to jump into a fitness program or do anything to change their lifestyle because they're like, "What? I already have what I want. I already have tons of money. I've got all the cars and boats and all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm good." Like, yeah, but imagine how much more you could earn operating at your maximum potential, having real energy that doesn't end, having real confidence that is not just hidden behind fancy clothes and fancy jewelry and cars and stuff. Imagine if you've been able to accumulate $10 million by being fat somehow. Imagine if you get yourself jacked and in great shape, how much more you could earn just because of how people perceive you, how much more respect people have just by looking at you, and how much more you could do with the energy and mental clarity because of the great shape you got in. So you can always get more. Like getting in shape is always a net positive. There's not a downfall to it, especially if you're in a sick, obese, diseased place. There is no downside to getting in healthier condition,
Hmm.
financially, mentally, and physically. Like it's always a net positive.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, just even if you don't gain anymore, like the quality of what you do already have will be experienced to a greater extent. Because again,
Yeah.
inflammation starts in the body and leads to inflammation in the brain, and then distorts your conscious experience of reality. And maybe it'll be nice if your wife actually still finds enjoys sleeping with you too, you know?
Right, right.
And doesn't have to make up a story about how
Oh
much she enjoys it.
man. See, that's another one. They're like, my wife loves the dad bod, or my girl loves, loves my dad bod. Okay, great. I'm glad she does. That means she probably really likes you. But imagine how much more she would like it if, you were actually in better shape. She would still, it wouldn't be less. She would like you more. So that's just another excuse. Oh, she likes my dad bod. So that's why you're going to stay fat,
Mhm.
because you think your girlfriend likes your dad bod. You don't think she would like you even more if you showed up and showed that you were taking care of yourself, and you exuded more discipline and more confidence and more leadership. That's going to turn her on even more. So you can always go to another level by getting in healthier and getting in better shape.
Yeah, and like the two biggest reasons for divorce are loss of attraction or financial reasons, you know? So, I
Sure.
mean, it's like a big gamble, obviously, when a person loses attraction to you, and stuff of that sort. So,
Yeah. And if one person, let's say both people are out of shape, if one person gets in shape, the other one sometimes says like, "Oh man, I'm going to lose him or her because now they're the hot one," or whatever. Dude, if you have a better mentality, that one person getting in shape should inspire the other one to also get in shape. Now you can be a hotter couple together.
mhm,
Like you can both go to another level together,
yeah.
you know.
All right, Justin, I have another podcast to do here in like 30
Awesome.
minutes. I'm going to take a quick like power nap or something, so I have the energy for that one too. But
Good deal,
um,
Eugene.
but yeah, it's great to connect, and thanks for staying in touch. Thanks for staying in touch online and everything, and then hopefully we can see each other again in person one day.
You bet, man. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for your time.
Okay, just one sec. I want to
Yeah.
make sure I know how to close this out properly without losing the footage. Give me one
Yep.
second.
Take
Do you
your time.
know do you know how to do it by any chance? I think you just close it
I
out and it
I want
uploads
to
it
say
automatically, right?
think you just close it, and I think it's going to ask if you want to post it or something like that. You just probably hit
Okay, let
yes. But
me
like,
see. So if you end the live, it will also end for all your viewers. Give me one second. Let me just see what other options we have.
I could save. Looks like if you hit share, you might be able to save the Dropbox. I've never done that before.
Share. Okay. Well, I shared it to some random person, so he's going to get it right now. Hold on. I'm going to share it to you too.
Yeah. I think it's
Did you
just
get
gonna.
it?
I think it's gonna share the live feed.
Oh,
We probably have.
okay. Yeah.
We probably have
Okay.
to hit X
Okay.
and then.
I'm going to hit it. And if we lose it, it was still a good podcast. I mean, it was great
Yes,
to catch
sir.
up either way. I doubt we'd lose it though. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
All right,
Justin. Have
brother.
a good rest of the day, man.
You too,
Have a good
bro.
weekend.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. If you've ever had trouble losing weight, or you've lost weight, but still didn't have the ideal body or health you're aiming for, please feel free to reach out anytime and book an assessment. Eugene will work with you to cover your goals in detail, see what's holding you back, and go from there. In the meantime, feel free to check out the countless testimonials on Eugene's website in the link below. In the testimonial section, you'll notice everyone has various backgrounds, are of all different ages, and all have had different challenges in their life, but they all have one thing in common: they were all able to find their health and achieve their ideal body. You're also welcome to add yourself to the Facebook group in the link below. There you'll have access to the live videos that Eugene does weekly on Sundays, and other helpful content. Thank you again for tuning in.